We're just going to continue on. We're just going to continue talking. Yep, that was just like a tech issue. But now we're good. We're just going to continue talking. But yes, so thank you so much for being here. Like I was saying, you are the first Big Ten fan I've had on here. And obviously, Michigan being represented the first time I'm doing this segment, besides last week when I did it with Ghost. So I am super excited to kind of talk to you about Michigan football, the conference, and kind of hear your excitement for the upcoming season, which I imagine you're pretty excited for.
I am so excited for the season. I actually cannot contain it. Like, I'll be quite honest with you, not particularly excited for the 2024 season after everything Michigan lost, but we have so much momentum right now that I am beyond excited for what this season will bring.
That is awesome. So kind of taking a look at the upcoming season, how are you feeling about Michigan and what is your predicted record if you have one at this time?
I'm really optimistic, to be quite honest. I view our ceiling, I mean, if I'm really honest, probably 11-1. If I'm being super optimistic, 12-0. And even my most pessimistic self on this is probably 10-2. Like, I think they're going to be very good, and I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect them to be, for sure.
Yeah, and that's super exciting. I mean, it's probably a nice shift in vibes. Like you were just saying, you weren't really feeling it going into the 2024 season, but now you guys have stuff to be excited for, and you kind of got those 2024 jitters out of the way. You can kind of kick off the 2025 season, hopefully in a strong manner. So yeah, I totally get that. Is there like anything in particular about this team that makes you super excited in comparison to last year, but maybe just in general in the last few years?
I mean, obviously, I think every Michigan fan is going to say Bryce Underwood first and foremost. Michigan went from having a walk-on quarterback to having a 5-star plus elite, most highly recruited, desired quarterback in all of college football, right? So he's got to be at the top of every Michigan fans list for sure in terms of excitement level. But I'm also really excited about Justice Haynes transferring in. I've listened to some interviews with him. He seems very bought in to the culture of Michigan, which is great to see. I'm really excited to see how they're going to use him with Jordan Marshall, the other running back. I think this running back room is going to be exceptional. I'm very excited about that. And then the defense, of course, right? A lot of these guys, yes, we did lose Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham to the NFL draft. But if you watched the ReliaQuest Bowl, and I've watched it embarrassingly several times now, I think you watched a lot of these Michigan backups take on Alabama's first string and just physically dominate them. And that's the team, plus Justice Haynes from Alabama, who is rolling into this 2025 season. I think the defense is going to be exceptional and going to be strong. I think Wink Martindale took a little bit of time to kind of understand the college game, but he started really clicking later in the season. Michigan was the best defense in college football statistically after the Indiana game, and combining the fact that we now have real meaningful offensive capabilities with this defense is just going to be tremendous. And then also, I'll get to this later, but like Michigan's schedule is pretty favorable in no small part because we don't play Oregon.
Well, that is a lot of exciting things to look forward to this season. And you kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but what game on your schedule are you most excited for and why?
It's got to be the Ohio State game.
Of course. Yeah.
Look, that was a game that I was so nervous about. Obviously last year, right? I mean, we suffered a lot of really embarrassing losses throughout the season. Obviously, Ohio State had 3 years of losing to Michigan built up. I think everybody, including me, kind of expected that to be a little bit of a bloodbath, and it wasn't. And look, Michigan didn't even play perfectly. I saw a comment today that said Michigan, it took a perfect game from Michigan to beat Ohio State, and it didn't. We had 2 picks that game. One of them should have been a touchdown. Like, Michigan didn't play perfectly in that game. It was the worst version of Michigan in a decade up against, as we know, a national championship Ohio State. Like it was just pure will and I think, frankly, some stupidity and mental blocks from Ryan Day. But this is a much better version of Michigan. This game is in Ann Arbor this year, and if you want to like break it down in a little bit more detail, I think Ohio State's biggest weakness is lacking depth on the defensive line. And I think Michigan is going to be able to run the ball really well. So I have a lot more confidence in this Michigan offense. I have lots of confidence in this Ohio State defense. I think the matchup really favors Michigan getting its fifth straight win. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for November.
Yeah, I mean, that is always a game that I look forward to, kind of regardless of the seasons Ohio State and Michigan are having, because it's just one of the best rivalries in college football. Wow. But last year, that game really took me by surprise because I feel like so many people kind of brushed it off. Like, there's no way Ohio State.
No way.
Here. And we could even like the fact that they won the national championship. Even if you told them that, there's like, yeah, there's no way they lose to Michigan. So seeing that game play out in the way that it did, and obviously the way that it ended, was just really top tier entertainment for probably anybody but Ohio State fans, because it was just really wild. So yeah, I imagine that is probably the most exciting game. And it's always wonderful when your rivalry game is the most exciting game on your schedule, because it kind of just builds it up even more. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that as well. What game on your schedule makes you the most nervous and why?
Oklahoma, for sure. Thankfully, Oklahoma is not a conference game, which is great. So I don't think this will not impact Michigan's chances for getting to Indianapolis, which I think are pretty good. But it does make me nervous. This Oklahoma team is quite a bit more improved, particularly on offense. Obviously, they brought in a new offensive coordinator in Arbuckle, brought in John Mateer. That combination together makes me nervous. John Mateer was pretty prolific. If you watched him, like, he's a real gamer, notwithstanding whatever, Venmo activity he has going on. But he's tough. That offense will be significantly improved. And then my least favorite addition to that offense is Jaden Ott from Cal. Like,
yeah.
I went to Berkeley for law school. I cheer for the Cal Bears, and seeing him leave Cal to go to Oklahoma made my heart sink. And then he like trashed Cal a little bit on the way out, which was upsetting. I think it's some negative karma for that Oklahoma team, but the offense is just going to be better. Like, they loaded up on the line, and then Oklahoma just has like a pretty predictably good defense. So I think Michigan should be okay. My primary concern is obviously that this Oklahoma team is better, but then also if Bryce Underwood is a starting quarterback, they haven't officially named him that yet, but I assume that will be the situation. He will be coming in on his second college start to an insane environment in Norman. The game is at night. Like, it's going to be overwhelming. It will be like nothing he has ever seen before. And look, the rest of that Michigan team is pretty veteran. I think they'll be up for it. But this is going to be unlike anything Underwood has seen before. And that does make me nervous. I'm just grateful it is not a Big Ten conference game, honestly.
Yeah, I hear you. Despite it making you nervous, do you think Michigan wins?
I do. I do have confidence that Michigan can win this game. Or I don't think they're going to get embarrassed. Like, I have really awful memories of the Texas game last year when Texas rolled into Ann Arbor and just kind of had their way with Michigan. I don't think that's going to happen. This Michigan team is significantly improved, I think, particularly on offense from last year's. And I think they have a chance. And I think my primary confidence arises from Michigan's defense, which I think is solid. I think it's going to be a surprise for Mateer, right? Who coming from Washington State has not seen a defense like this one. Like, he just hasn't. And that will be a surprise to him as well. So I think Michigan wins, but I am the most nervous for it.
Yeah. But like you said, at least it's not a conference game. So there is that's an optimistic thing. Plus, I agree with you. I think Michigan will win that game, but I think it will be a good game.
That, Emily. I love your vote of confidence.
Yeah. I tend to it's really easy for me to want Michigan to win as long as Oregon's not involved.
I feel
And
that way
this,
about you guys.
oh,
You're
well,
always
that makes me so
for the
happy.
Ducks.
That makes me so happy because, I mean, it even goes beyond you guys beating Washington in the national championship. It was before that. But you guys did me a real solid with that. And I will thank and talk about that with any Michigan fan of, yes, thank you so much for winning the
I
national
feel
champ.
that way about you beating Ohio State last year in
Yeah.
October 12th. It was
That was a fun time. The other time we played them last season was
no,
not great of a
we don't
time.
remember that. The Rose
No,
Bowl
we don't talk about
has
that.
been
But
deleted from our memories.
the first time was a super good time. So, yes. But yeah, so I think I'm confident with Michigan going into that Oklahoma game. I think it might be a good game, but like you said, Michigan's not going to get embarrassed. So, we love that. Absolutely. So kind of speaking about Oregon and the newcomers in the conference, how do you like having new programs in the conference? And what were your initial thoughts about 4 new schools joining the Big Ten?
I mean, it's funny, right? Because it started with USC and UCLA. And I remember the announcement, it was like right before the 4th of July. And I am not a huge USC fan. So and also like, I loved the Pac 12. That's part of this too. And I don't know your feelings on the Pac 12, Emily. I would love to hear them as someone who has been a part of it for a long time. But just as a college football fan generally, I really loved the Pac 12. There's something really special about the level of competitiveness, the style of play, the timing, the fact that you could turn on the TV, at 9 p.m. and just watch an incredible football game. Like that's something
Yeah.
that I have mourned the loss of. And I would be curious to hear your thoughts on moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten in that regard. But like I miss the Pac-12 for sure. That being said, like I don't love USC. Wasn't thrilled to see USC coming over, but the addition of Oregon has been my favorite, in part because your fans are totally awesome
Oh,
and your level of play is elite. And I think it really adds in this new world of college football where we're looking at conferences and conference power. And let's be honest, like the Big Ten is constantly competing with the SEC
yeah.
for supremacy in this era. I think you guys just give the Big Ten so much more strength and credibility. And the fact that now Oregon is part of all of these Big Ten schedules is awesome, right? It just really, I think, enhances the competitiveness, enhances the quality of play, enhances the fan base. Like, it's great. I love that. Oregon has been my favorite addition to the Big Ten by far. Did not love Washington coming in and beating Michigan last year.
Yeah. I didn't love that either, Michelle. I didn't love that.
I did love that we beat USC.
Yeah.
We haven't played UCLA yet, but UCLA played spoiler. Like I think they beat Nebraska last year, sort of
Yeah.
unexpectedly. So there's some surprises there, which I think are good. But overall, I would assess it as positive, notwithstanding the loss of the Pac-12, which I did genuinely love and will genuinely miss. And I guess I'm just curious. I'm like, what do you think about coming to the Big Ten and leaving the Pac-12? Like, do you miss the Pac-12?
Yeah. So I think as a college football fan, it's hard to come to the realization that the Pac-12 imploding in the way that it did basically. It is because there's so much history within that conference and people make fun of it for the weakness, but like you were talking about Pac-12 after dark, like that was something that really brought college football fans together if they were up on the Eastern time zone, and definitely like on the Pacific time zone. It was just something to look forward to, and it was just something that created chaos. It was amazing.
Right.
Those games were elite. And so there are parts of the Pac-12 that I miss. And the fact that it's like so wonky now with Stanford and Cal in the ACC and then the 4 teams in the Big 10 and everyone is kind of just those two schools are left for their own in the Pac-12. And the way the Pac-12 is rebuilding, it absolutely just doesn't feel the same. That being said, for the college football trajectory, I totally wanted the move for Oregon to the Big Ten because I knew that it would be beneficial to the program and I knew what could come from that. And being able to go against Big Ten teams would be beneficial for Oregon. So it's like I see both sides to it. I think the college football fan in me is, it was really sad. It's really unfortunate. But the Oregon fan in me is like, well, no, this has to be done. And I was vouching for the Big Ten for like over a year. I'm like, I want the Big Ten. And people would like joke around and talk about how Oregon was going to end up in the Big 12. I'm like, that can't happen. I just that can't happen. Like it has to be the Big Ten. So overall, I am excited and happy that Oregon is in the Big Ten. But when you look at the landscape of college football and kind of what the demise of that version of the Pac-12 did to it and kind of how it looks now, like it's hard not to be sad about it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, RIP, the former Pac-12. Looks like there was a comment about like the new Pac-12. It's just so different, right? It's hard to imagine, sadly, the new Pac-12, especially in this new era of college football with the transfer portal and NIL, where it seems like the best talent. And we see this with John Mateer, right? That's a Pac-12, Pac-2, whatever you want to call it. Very talented quarterback leaving that conference and going to the SEC. And it in this new era, it really does feel like NIL and the transfer portal are just facilitating the emergence of the big two, right? Of the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
I hope that changes. I would love to see it. I love parity in college football. I would love to see the new Pac-12 emerge as a meaningful competitor or challenger to the other Power Four conferences as they exist right now. But it doesn't seem like a likely possibility under the new structure. Now that may change. So one thing I am hopeful for with this House versus NCAA settlement is that if we have player contracts, it could lock in talent at some of these other programs for longer. So players can't leave once they improve and get better. They would be engaged for a contract term and be unable to leave. And I think that could help some of these other programs retain talent. But right now, I mean, like John Mateer is the perfect example of this, right? Like balled out and then pieced out. And that's just not going to help the Pac-12 in its relevance.
Right. Yeah. And that's so true. I know that's probably one of the biggest things that fans hate about the current landscape are those players who are at smaller programs and they, like you said, like they ball out, they have really good years and then they transfer to one of the bigger programs. And it's like this ongoing cycle. And it's so much so that it has become kind of like that joke, right? Of like, oh, this player from this Mountain West team is doing really good. What SEC team is he going to play for next season, or what Big Ten team is he going to play for next season? So I get that. I understand how like having basically these AAA minor league teams,
right. Yeah, it's like that.
Like that's not what college football should be. And so like your idea of contracts and kind of just finding different ways to just make it a little better in that regard would probably help. But you kind of alluded to this as well, but like these two mega conferences, what are your thoughts on that in terms of like just the big, I know people hypothesize about this, people try to predict like, oh, eventually there's just going to be two conferences in college football. Is that something that you like or that you think could be a good idea depending on how it's done, or do you prefer it to stay as is or even better?
I mean, it feels so inevitable at this stage. And I honestly think the addition of Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA to the Big Ten and like, I think Clemson is looking for a home right now. There's a chance that Clemson goes, I've heard rumors of Clemson to the Big Ten or the SEC. I mean,
Yeah.
It feels inevitable, but I don't love it. I actually miss a landscape where there was a real possibility of a national champion coming from anywhere, right? Like
Yeah.
that was, I thought, really fun and cool. And I think that's over. What I do like to see is the SEC and the Big Ten exerting their will a little bit more against the NCAA. And maybe this is just kind of a personal and timely issue for me now that Michigan is just getting off of its battle with the NCAA. I don't have a lot of respect for the NCAA, and I think that they have often overstepped their power. So I like that the SEC and the Big Ten are sort of now reminding the NCAA that uh, they are big and powerful and that they kind of call the shots in reality. That's a good thing. But I miss having more relevant conferences other than just the Big Ten and the SEC. I do. What's your opinion on that? I'm so curious.
I find it really hard. I mean, people, they relate it to like the NFL, like these
Yeah.
two, there's just like these two mega conferences. I just have a really hard time picturing college football like that. And not that there's anything wrong with that at the professional level. I mean, I love the NFL, so I'm not hating on that whatsoever. I just have a really hard time picturing college football getting to that point because you lose so much
You do.
with two mega conferences. People are going to argue like right now we've lost so much with the Pac-12 disintegrating and these teams being shuffled elsewhere. And I understand that, like what we were just talking about in terms of like the history of a conference. But two mega conferences, like you're absolutely diminishing a lot of tradition on some level and college
Yeah.
football history that I can't imagine it being very enjoyable. And I'm not necessarily sure, and this could be selfish because I ended up in the conference that I wanted to end up in. So now I'm like, everyone else can stay.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I got the move I wanted. So everyone else just stay. Everything is good. Because I just don't like, when do we stop? Like, so yeah, Clemson's looking for a home. Are Stanford and Cal going to want to move at some point? Like, when do we stop with all of this? The formation of the Pac-12 is fine because they literally had two teams. So I don't necessarily care very much about them, building up again and teams shifting to the Pac-12. But yeah, I have a really hard time imagining what college football even looks like with two mega conferences.
Right. And it's really hard on the student athlete. Like at least with this
Yeah.
emergence of the new Pac-12, they're more like regionally
Yeah.
concentrated. I think one of the objections I had to the realignment was that you're actually not thinking about the impact on the student athlete. And a lot of these programs have become more professionalized, but we're also talking about people who are going to go pro in something else, right? Beyond football, and the impact on them of the cross country travel is enormous. And I think that was sort of like disregarded in this new landscape and will continue to be disregarded, especially if we continue to add to the Big Ten or add to the SEC as they each try to accumulate power to sort of be the top two. So,
Yeah.
but it's, I think it's inevitable. It's just, I kind of miss the olden days, if that's
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. That totally absolutely makes sense. And then how I just want to ask, I'm not going to ask you to do the whole conference. That seems like a lot with 18 teams. But who do you
I can
predict
do it, but I won't.
Okay, well, we'll start with the top 5. How about that? Who do you predict will finish in the top 5 of the Big 10 at the end of the season?
All right. This is not in order of the best or my most favorite, but I would say Penn State is got to be there. I mean, this Penn State team, if you look at it, is built so much like Michigan Team 144 and even Ohio State 2024. Like they just bring back so much returning talent, 5-star quarterback coming back, and Drew Aller. Like they have been very close. They tasted the playoff and then had the heartbreak of missing it, which tends to be incredibly motivating for a team. Like they just have all the ingredients of a team They have a leadership, like they have all the ingredients of a team, notwithstanding, whatever the Franklin deniers and haters will tell you. And they may not be wrong, but they look like they have the composition of what could be a national champion. But I do think they at least deserve a spot in the top 5 of the Big Ten, if not the number 1.
That's fair.
Yeah, I really think that. I think one of their biggest tests is going to be against Oregon, who I also have in the top 5. Like, I was devastated to see the loss of Evan Stewart. I thought he was going to be a difference maker for you this year, and I'm sad to see him gone. But I think you've got a lot of other weapons. I'm really excited to see Mekhi Hughes. I know that's a player that you guys are super high on. I think he's going to be huge for you. And look, this is just honestly Dan Lanning's recruiting coming to fruition. A lot of the country has not seen a lot of these players before, but they were all very highly rated recruits who he has developed. We know he can develop. We know he can coach. Like, love Dan Lanning, respect him, respect your program. I think that game on, September 27th against Penn State is going to be really telling as to what this looks like. I think some question marks, of course, and Dante Moore, but look, you guys are well coached. You're well developed. There's no reason to think Oregon is anything outside of a top 5 team for the Big Ten. Got a lot of hope for you guys. Michigan, of course, love Michigan. I think a lot of this is it's a talent thing. It's a talent upgrade, particularly on the offense. I've discussed that a lot, but it's also a schedule thing. We don't play you guys in the regular season. Thank goodness. We don't play Penn State in the regular season. We don't play Illinois in the regular season. Oklahoma is a non-conference game. So look, our hardest games are going to be at USC on October 11th and then against Ohio State in Ann Arbor. It's the reality. Washington comes to Ann Arbor, but I think this year's team is a lot better team than the team that lost to Washington last year. So I think there's a good chance Michigan could be at the very top of the Big Ten this year. Illinois is a team I am super excited about. I have a little bit of returning production bias, which does incline me toward Illinois, but Luke Altmaier is one of the most experienced quarterbacks in a conference with not a lot of experienced quarterbacks right now. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
And they have, I think, the entire O-line coming back, the entire secondary coming back. Like, I think Illinois is going to be really good. They also benefit from a pretty favorable schedule. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Penn State. They don't play Michigan. Their toughest game is going to be against Ohio State on October 11th. And it's in Champaign. They get that one at home. So keep your eyes on Illinois. I think they're a top 5. And then I hate to do it, but I do have to put Ohio State in the top 5. I do, but I don't want to. And look, there's a lot of ways in which Ohio State tends to copy Michigan. Michigan won a national title. Ohio State won a national title. Yeah. Then Michigan sent 14 players to the NFL in the draft. Ohio State sent 14 players to the draft. Michigan lost its offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So did Ohio State. Now, Ohio State keeps its head coach, but query whether that is actually an asset, given the fact that a number of Buckeyes were calling for him to be terminated after they lost to Michigan for a 4th straight year. Guess what else happens to Ohio State? They open their season with Texas, just like Michigan did. There are just a lot of ways in which this Ohio State team looks a lot like last year's Michigan team. So I know people are very high on Jeremiah Smith with good reason. He's incredibly talented, probably the best player in college football. People are very high on Caleb Downs. But you know what else Michigan had? Multiple top 10 draft picks on their team. And it didn't stop them from going 8-5 because Ohio State still has a question at quarterback like Michigan did. The parallels, I'm telling you, Emily, they're uncanny. So
Yeah, that is really fascinating. Like big sibling energy right there. Like
like
absolutely.
exactly.
Yes, huge sibling energy. That is fascinating. And I mean, I completely agree with your top 5. Ohio State would be in it, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan would. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Illinois is going to be a lot of fun to watch this season. And the fact that Ohio State goes to Illinois, I think that'll be a really interesting and fascinating game. Obviously, dependent on just how their seasons go up to at that point. But where we're at right now, I find that to be an incredibly fascinating game. So yeah, that is exciting. Um, but yeah, great top 5, honestly. What do you think, and I mean, this might be like nothing, but do you think anything happens to Ryan Day if he loses to Michigan again?
I don't think he can survive it. And I will say this, I actually have a lot of respect for Ryan Day as a person. I think he is a good man. I think he cares deeply about the development of his players into not just football players, but good men and good people. I've listened to a ton of interviews he's done. Like, I really respect Ryan Day. I think I might respect more. I might respect Ryan Day more than some Ohio State fans because the nastiness that he experienced after losing to Michigan 3 times, like he received death threats, like it was insane. Um, and then to lose a 4th time, I mean, I virtually every Ohio State fan I follow on social media was like, get him out of here. He's
Yeah.
got to get out of here. And they won a national championship. I think it saved him. And it should have. Like, I think he did a Rumpelstiltskin thing in turning that straw into gold for that program. But at the end of the day, they care about whether or not they beat Michigan and they care about whether or not they're in the Big Ten championship game and winning the Big Ten championships. And they'll tell you they don't, but don't believe them. You've seen it, Emily. I've seen it. It
Right.
remains remarkable to me that they claim to be the best team in the Big Ten when they have not appeared in a Big Ten championship game since we were all wearing masks and doing school online in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. I just saw that posted actually yesterday or the day before, like the last time each team won a Big Ten championship. And you forget with how Ohio State fans talk, you kind of like don't immediately think
They haven't
about.
even been in Indianapolis. They haven't even played in the game.
Right.
And
Right.
some of that is a factor of the divisions, right? Because
Yeah, totally.
prior to this past year, it was division based. So teams that appeared in Indianapolis instead of Ohio State included Purdue and Iowa. So, and then obviously Michigan 3 times in a row, and then Oregon and Penn State. But like they haven't even appeared in a conference championship
Yeah.
since 2020.
I know. It's wild when you put it like that. I mean, it is. I know they just won a national championship, so I know that, put out the fire a little bit. But with what a big rivalry Michigan and Ohio State are across college football, it's just not a good look when you've lost to your rival that many times in a row. And especially when you do so when your team is of national championship caliber and
Yeah.
Michigan is struggling like they did last season. So it is, I can't imagine this ending well. I am absolutely here for the entertainment factor though. If Michigan wins the game this season, I cannot imagine the meltdown that will be across social media.
Oh my gosh.
But on the serious side, yeah, like you have to ask like what happens? Like is that national championship enough? Like do they have to go back to back just to ease some of the flames? Or is it just like you're done?
I think it also depends, Emily, on if Ohio State suffers other losses this season, which I
Yeah.
predict they will. Like, if you look back at LSU with Ed Orgeron, right? Like he won a national championship and then he had a really crappy season after that.
He did.
And it did not save him that he had previously. And look, I don't think that like Ryan Day, who, like I said, I respect tremendously, is going to go engage in the embarrassing behaviors of Ed Orgeron. I do not think that's going to happen. But Ohio State does not tolerate losses well, and good for them, right? Like there are programs that have had tremendous success. They do not tolerate losing. But I think if he drops a couple Big Ten games, which I think is a real possibility, right? I think they could actually lose that game in Champaign to Illinois. I think there's a real chance of that. And if he loses a couple Big Ten games and they once again miss out on the Big Ten championship game and maybe don't even make the playoff, like if they don't make the playoff and they lose to Michigan, I don't think he stays. Yeah. Notwithstanding the Natty. I just maybe that's what we'll take, maybe it's not. I just saw the absolute lack of tolerance Ohio State fans had last year for losing to Michigan for a fourth straight year, and like a bad Michigan team, right? That's the one thing Ryan Day hadn't ever done previously. He had never lost to like unranked teams. When he had lost to Michigan before, it was to a Michigan team that went on to win the national title, or Michigan teams that went on to play in the 14 college football playoff. Yeah. He never lost to the bad one. And that's what made 2024 so distinctive, so entertaining. But this year I don't think he can survive it.
Yeah, I'm with you. That like totally makes sense. Chad the Chief has a good question. Thank you, Chad. Who is your dark horse in the Big Ten?
I guess Illinois doesn't really count as a dark horse.
Yeah.
They have so much returning production.
Exactly.
It would probably be, I want to say, I don't know. I don't love USC. I think USC is probably in the conversation, but I don't intend to have that conversation leave my mouth. Maybe Nebraska, I don't know. Like I like Raiola a lot. Mm-hmm. I just have some questions about that Nebraska defense. They lost a ton of production, especially on the defensive line. I think it's going to make it challenging for them. They also lost their D coordinator. Washington, if Damon Williams really goes off, they've got some weapons on offense. With Coleman and Boston, I don't know. I just look the Big Ten and maybe Indiana. I don't know. Can they be a dark horse after going to college?
I think so.
Last year, maybe. I don't love that Fernando Mendoza left Cal. I don't tend to cheer for the Cal diaspora. Maybe that's unfair of me, but I don't know. I just think the Big Ten is going to be really like the 5 teams I listed already. It's going to be a rock fight between those things, as it is. Like, I don't know that this is a conference that is really going to permit dark horses. Like, if you want a dark horse, look at the Big 12. Like, right? Like, look, or the ACC even. Like, those are the conferences where you, like, see dark horses emerge. But I just don't think with the way that talent is amassed in the Big Ten and the SEC that they're really conferences where there are dark horses.
Yeah, it's so true. The Big 12 is a really good pick for that because there are some teams that have been thrown around like, Texas Tech will be good, maybe Kansas State, maybe Baylor, but otherwise it feels really wide open. ACC, I think Clemson will be right there at the top. It's hard to argue otherwise, but everybody after them, again, there's like a good handful of teams that it could go a multitude of ways. So yeah, it'll be interesting with those 2 conferences for sure. So my final question for you is, and this isn't going to be like set in stone. I'm telling everyone here, this is not set in stone. But before I do that, thank you, Nash, for liking the video. Feel free to please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We would all really appreciate it. But do you think the national champion comes from the SEC or the Big Ten this season? Or I guess ACC. I'm sorry. We could talk ACC, Big 12, but
yeah, I think it's the Big Ten. I think we three-peat. Quite honestly, I alluded to this before. I think it's probably going to be Penn State. They just have the ingredients of a national champion. And if it's not them, I think it's probably Texas. It's probably the SEC.
Yeah.
But I know Texas is part of the SEC, but look, I watched as the SEC like crapped on Texas when they had their whole welcome to the SEC event.
Yep, I remember that.
And look, Texas was the last man standing for the SEC in the college football playoff. I love Texas. Hook 'em. I hope they beat Ohio State. And if it had to be Texas, great. That would be a worthy national champion.
Yeah. Do you have faith or confidence in James Franklin to get Penn State to a national championship?
Yes and no. So one thing I know about James Franklin, the most reliable metric with regard to Penn State is that James Franklin wins the games in which he is favored and he loses the games in which he is not.
Right.
And for James Franklin's sake, this Penn State team is so hyped up by the national media right now that I think they will actually be favored in probably every game other than when they travel to Columbus, and they may even be favored there depending on whether or not Ohio State drops the game to Texas early on and then maybe drops a game to Illinois. So if James Franklin is favored, he can win. Like, we know that about him. He has proven that much. The real question is whether he can win the games in which he is not favored. And what I say to that is everybody doubted that Jim Harbaugh could win a college football playoff game until he did, right?
Yeah.
And you can't until you can. And I think that is kind of my stance on James Franklin. I think he'll be favored in a lot of the big games he plays this year. And if he's not favored, we'll see. He's just got so much talent on that roster, and they're so mission-minded that look, Michigan did it without a head coach for a bunch of games in 2020.
Right.
So maybe best case scenario for Penn State is that James Franklin gets suspended the way Harbaugh was. They can go on and win in spite of him.
Yeah. But you bring up a really good point because like he has so many tools on this team, and it is really a well put together veteran team that it makes the most sense on paper for this team to win the conference and to make it far in playoffs. And so it kind of, I feel like it highlights that question even more that people kind of consistently have made fun of in the last few years, is like people are really quick to jump the gun on James Franklin. Like he's just not the coach to get them there. So it's like now you have this like well-packaged team. Like what are you going to prove people wrong? Or are you actually going to, fall along with the jokes of the fact that you're just not enough to get that team there? Because like this is it. Like you have the returning quarterback and you have the returning players that, proved well for you in the past and, led to Penn State's success last season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he falls flat or if this is Penn State's year to kind of make it. And I mean, this has nothing to do with like obviously conference loyalty, but I do think like that it makes the most sense for them to be the one that people are predicting for the national championship, if not Texas.
Sure. No, I totally agree. I'm seeing a comment right now about will Michigan get lucky and not have to play USC at night? I hope they don't play USC at night. I've been to the Coliseum at night. I've actually been to a number of USC games at the Coliseum, believe it or not. Part of the reason I don't like USC. There's a history there, and it would be great if Michigan did not play USC at night.
Yeah, it changes you. Those experiences, they change you. I think like recruiting battles and on and off field stuff aside, like growing up in San Diego, I just always had this distaste for USC and their fans always made it worse. But of course, it's like kids getting in your face, yelling about a team that they don't really know or yelling about statistics that they don't really know. And then kind of just elevates the older you get of like, no, actually, I know a handful of annoying USC fans. But I will say, at least on social media, there are also a handful of USC fans that aren't as
actually some of that they have changed USC for me. Some of the favorite Twitter accounts are actually USC.
Yes. Yeah, there are some good ones. I mean, I guess that could be said for every fan base, but USC in particular, there are some good ones, and they definitely make it good.
Definitely.
But and same with Ohio State. That was interesting because, and I'm sure you have your experience with Ohio. I can only imagine with Ohio State fans on social media, it's probably a daily occurrence for you. But I had tweeted out like the other week what the best Ohio State accounts were because I was curious. Like I follow a few, but I
Mhm.
also have very many in my mentions just like randomly tweeting at me like 34-0, and it's like a photo of my dinner. So it's just like I'm constantly like seeing the ones who are just like a little obsessive about it.
Yeah.
But the handful of Ohio State ones that I do follow and interact with, they make it good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There are some solid ones for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I loved having this opportunity to talk to you about Michigan and the Big Ten. I'm super excited for Michigan's season, super excited for the conference in general. I think it's going to be exciting and awesome. Thank you all for tuning in to this segment. Feel free to like the video and subscribe on YouTube. We would really appreciate. But until then, Michelle, have a wonderful night, and we will be back with Big Ten Talk next Sunday.